Proposal writing sucks, but it doesn't have to suck. Before I learned this system I'm about to show you today, I used to hate writing proposals. In high school as a C student in English, and when I got to college it wasn't much better. In technical writing I got a C as well. But when it comes to government proposals, I can crank out these amazing, well-crafted documents that win me and my clients tens of millions of dollars in federal contracts every time. Yes, there are plenty of contracts that don't require technical proposals. However, for the ones that make you money and help you build a solid business, they have a technical write-up. Like most things, once you master the skill, you will no longer be excluded from any major opportunities. Hi, my name is Coffie, and before I started podcasting, I built a 7-figure business in construction selling to the federal government. Since then, I've come onto YouTube to share my thoughts, my ideas, and help business owners like yourself start from scratch. I've helped thousands of entrepreneurs scale at winning 6- and 7-figure government contracts, and I want to help you too. In the new American First era, federal dollars are now moving away from certifications and moving towards more what can you do for your country. In one of my WhatsApp groups, someone literally wrote this. We've got a list of taboo words that are not to be included in federal grant contract proposals. Please take heed of the climate change that's taking place from MLK Day to President's Day. If the purpose cannot be expressed without adjectives, then it's not American. And I think this is important. Right now, it's more important than ever to compete on strength, not set-asides. Success in federal contract depends on 3 things: performance, pricing, and capability. In this video, I'm going to give you the 6 steps I use to build world-class proposals that win us millions of dollars in federal contracts. By the way, if you're interested, we have a proposal writing bootcamp starting next month. Visit govconcoaching.com for more information. You won't just learn theory, you'll walk with real polished proposals ready for submission. And by the end of 5 weeks, you will have submitted 2 fully compliant competitive proposals. Let's go. Step number 1, check for qualifications. What do I mean by that? So the first thing we want to do is we want to pull up the instruction for offers or the evaluation criteria, or both. And when we look at the instruction for offers and evaluation criteria, we can determine whether or not we, or someone that we know, or someone that we can have access to, can meet the minimum requirements. That's important because as a first step, we don't want to spend a lot of our time trying to pursue proposals and opportunities for things that we cannot do and accomplish. I know that a lot of people, when they get or they read something that they pulled off sam.gov or from any other place where you may pull down potential opportunities, we are saying, oh yeah, that's great, this is what I do, without understanding what are the actual requirements that entail. So for example, it may say that you need 10 instances where you've done that in the past 2 years. Maybe you've only done it 8 times. So therefore you would be considered ineligible. However, there are opportunities for you to change that criteria. But at the very least, we want to understand what are the do's and the don'ts, what are the minimum acceptable requirements, so that you can make the best decision whether or not you want to move forward on that. Step number 2, review the requirements. Now, what I mean by review the requirements is different from step number 1. Step number 1 was check for qualifications to make sure we're eligible. Step 2, review the requirements. What I mean by that is what I like to do, and I'll show you on the screen, but I've got it here, is that we actually go into one of our learning model systems, whether you're using Gemini or Anthropic or Perplexity or Ask Alpha, ChatGPT. We like to take our entire proposal, so put it in there, and we type in the search terms, search for all the must and shall requirements. And so it spits out something like this, where it gives you a list of all the shalls and must that the proposal is asking for. Now, why do we do that? Because with the government sector, shall and must denote what things that you cannot exclude or that you need to talk about in these proposals that we're going to put together. So it's an easy way to search for and to actually build a matrix so that you know all these things listed here under shall and must. These are things that either I must do as a part of my contract responsibilities or I must provide as part of the proposal submission. And so again, a very easy way to dissect the requirements that could be hundreds of pages and find out what exactly do I need to submit. And so we do that all the time. Before we had any of these AI systems, I used to just go through and do control find and search, and I would search them and I would just copy and paste those requirements. So now, just to give you an example, I pulled down a sample proposal here, and it says, for example, telework should be at no additional cost to the government. The contractor shall ensure compliance with all regulations and orders of installation. The contractor shall ensure contractor employees do not perform services outside of the contract scope. The contract shall immediately notify the KO of any organizational conflict of interest. And then let me get into some of the must statements. The period performance must give the Army National Guard exclusive deals with the military. The contractor must ensure compliance with all security and identification verification policies. So as you can see, this is much different than step number one, because now we're getting down to what it is that I have to submit, what I have to write to, and we're able to build this matrix so that we know what it is not only that I have to write to, but also what it is I have to comply to. Step number three, past performance requirements. Past performance requirements, I like to do this right after step two, because oftentimes with some of the proposals that we have to submit in that are higher level, that are bigger opportunities, that's where you have to request a past performance questionnaire, PPQ. You have to request that from someone who's previously worked with you in the past and send it directly to that contracting officer, that agency, to an email that they assign. And the reason why we want to know this early on in the stage is because it takes time, a lot of time, and people don't typically like to do this. So if you give the person that you're asking from the reference for ample and sufficient time, you're most likely to increase the probability that they're going to get it in. However, if you discover this later on in the process as you're going through the proposal and it's due within a week, it's just going to make it more difficult for you to expect someone to turn this around with a few days notice. So we like to find those PPQ references and figure out what they are. And I like to start getting those worked out from day one. So again, a lot of these things that we're talking about, this happens in the first day or two once you learn about this opportunity exists. Because for us, we want to get ahead of it to give ourselves as much time and the team as much time to work on it as possible. Step number four, assign roles and responsibilities. So again, for us, when we say assign roles and responsibilities, we have a team of people. So for example, on our team, we have an estimator. So we have someone that's actually estimating the project, and usually that estimator, in addition to estimating the cost, they will also put together a timeline. So if there's some sort of Gantt chart that says, okay, how long you're going to do certain activities, they'll usually put that together. And we have a proposal manager that helps put the whole proposal together. And then we have technical writers that actually write different sections. And normally for us, the technical writers are made up of subcontractors, right? Maybe their roles and what they're doing. But normally it's people from within our own internal team who have specific knowledge of how the company works, the organization works, some of the things that we've done in the past. But typically between the estimators, the technical writers, which includes our subcontractors, and then we have proposal reviewers who actually review the entirety to make sure that we're compliant in all sections. And then, like I said, we have the proposal manager that ultimately is the one responsible for pushing the final button. So for us, what I've learned, especially when I'm working on proposals with bigger companies, sometimes these teams, I mean, they could be, 8, 12 people, and you may think that that's a lot of people. However, some of these, if you look at some of these IDIQs, they can be really complex. It takes that amount of people because there's different divisions of work and there's different areas where there are people specialize in. And so you write to your core competency of that particular item, and then the other people write to their core competencies. And so depending upon the size of the opportunity, it can take that many people and even more, right? But again, we're talking about typically small and medium businesses of people who are watching this channel. After we assign roles and responsibilities, step 5, we have review meetings. So we have periodic review meetings. Again, depending on how far out this thing is, it could be bi-weekly, or they could be weekly, or they could be twice a week, just again, depending upon how much time we have and how far along we are, right? So in the beginning, right, we once we've divvied up the work and said, okay, everyone's responsible for these certain tasks, then we go back in and we say, all right, now we know what each person's supposed to do. Let's meet on a bi-weekly basis. We've got 4 weeks to go. Let's meet on a weekly basis. We've got 2 weeks to go. Let's meet, we're going to meet once again on Thursday, then once again on Tuesday, and then we're going to get a final draft in and then have it reviewed by the review team before hitting a final submission. And then step number 6, the last step, is again, we have people who were not writing the proposal, actually reviewing the documents, reviewing the requirements, and that team is looking for to make sure that, again, all the items that we put shall and must are being adhered to. And so I'll give you one example where in a smaller company where we didn't do that and how it went bad. So for example, in one of our companies that we were working on, again, it was a small team of us, just 3 people really putting this proposal together. And it was a multi-year IDIQ. I think it was around $20 million Small Business IDIQ. They're going to put 4 or 5 companies. And one of the requirements was the project timeline was, let's say 360 days. Okay. And so the person that actually put together the estimate and put together the timeline did not check the requirements against the requirements to see what the requirements stated was the appropriate timeline for getting this seed project completed. And so what happened was, at the end of the day, he gave me a timeline that superseded the timeline that was written in the scope of work. And so, for example, let's say the timeline was 300 days. His chart that we submitted to the government was for 360 days. So we were automatically disqualified because of the timeline not meeting the requirement. So that's just one example of what can happen when you're not checking, having the people who are writing it checking against what the requirements are. And so it can be difficult and complex as these things get larger and larger. However, if you were to do all these things and put them in place, it will certainly help you out along the process. And so the system that we found that works for us, let me know if you have any different systems that you used in the past. Again, I've worked with companies in the hundreds of millions of dollars range, and this is exactly what we did, and we're able to successfully land us contracts in the 8 and 9 figure range. So all of these steps were able to help us, and we know that they'll be able to help you. And we look forward to, again, if you're interested in attending our bootcamp, visit govconcoaching.com. Find out more about Proposal. We're going to get in depth of how to actually do the activities and what does it look like. And we're going to create some templates for you so that once you have a ready-made template example of what your proposal looks like, it becomes much easier the second, the third, the fourth proposal. But again, that's what we're planning on doing and work with you guys. And for all of you who are interested, visit govconcoaching.com. We'll see you in the next video.